The San Pedro poltergeist case is not only remembered for the strange and terrifying events that unfolded in Jackie Hernandez's home in 1989, but also for the chilling first-hand accounts from those who were directly affected. These witnesses, family members, friends, and paranormal investigators, describe a haunting so intense and violent that it left an indelible mark on their lives. The haunting began not long after Jackie moved into her small bungalow in San Pedro, California, with her 2 young children. At first, the disturbances were subtle, the kinds of things that could be easily dismissed. But soon, the activity in the home escalated to a point that was impossible to ignore or rationalize away. Jackie herself recalled that the house felt off from the very beginning. In an interview years later, she said, "There was always this weird energy, a heaviness. I would be doing something as simple as making dinner or putting my kids to bed, and I'd feel like I was being watched. Not just watched, but hunted." Jackie's friend Susan was one of the first outsiders to experience the strange phenomena in the house. One night while babysitting Jackie's children, she heard what sounded like a deep, guttural whisper coming from the corner of the living room. "It was like someone was right next to me," Susan said, "but there was no one there. The voice said something, but it was so low I couldn't understand. It scared the hell out of me." Terrified, she rushed the children out of the house, vowing never to babysit there again. Jackie's experiences became increasingly alarming. At night, she would lie in bed and hear heavy footsteps in the attic above her. "It wasn't just creaks or sounds that an old house makes," she said. "It was the sound of boots stomping, like someone pacing back and forth." She would rush upstairs, flashlight in hand, only to find the attic completely empty. But the sense of being watched never left her, especially in the small crawl space where the most intense activity seemed to originate. The smell of rotting flesh became an almost constant companion in the house, appearing out of nowhere and then dissipating just as quickly. Jackie's neighbors reported the stench too, but no one could find its source. "It was unbearable," she said. "It would come out of nowhere, and it would stay with you. You couldn't escape it." The odor seemed to signal the presence of the entity, an ominous warning that something was about to happen. As the haunting grew more violent, Jackie's life became a living nightmare. The attacks on her were not only psychological but physical. On one occasion, Jackie was thrown against a wall by an invisible force. "I was standing in the kitchen when something hit me," she recalled. "It wasn't a push. It was like something grabbed me and hurled me across the room. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel it. I hit the wall so hard I thought I was going to pass out." Desperate for help, Jackie contacted Barry Conrad, a paranormal investigator and filmmaker, and his colleague, Jeff Wheatcraft, a photographer. When they arrived, they immediately sensed that something was deeply wrong with the house. Both men felt a sense of unease, but it wasn't until they began their investigation that they realized just how dangerous the situation truly was. Jeff Wheatcraft was the first to experience a direct attack by the entity. While exploring the attic, the epicenter of the activity, he suddenly felt a cold, forceful grip around his neck. In a panic, he tried to escape the attic, but whatever was attacking him seemed determined to stop him. "I was climbing down the ladder and out of nowhere, it felt like something yanked me back," Jeff later said. "I thought it was a prank, but no one was near me. Then I couldn't breathe. It was like something was strangling me." He managed to escape the attic, but the incident left him shaken and disoriented. "That was the moment I realized we were dealing with something more than just a ghost. It wasn't just moving things around, it was trying to hurt us." Barry Conrad, who filmed much of the investigation, also had his share of harrowing encounters. While filming in the kitchen, he captured footage of a strange, dark liquid dripping from the walls. The substance was slimy and seemed to defy explanation. "I've never seen anything like it," Conrad said. "It wasn't water or oil. It had this strange texture, almost like blood. But it wasn't. We couldn't figure out where it was coming from." Despite the growing danger, Conrad and Wheatcraft continued their investigation. During one session, they attempted to communicate with the entity through a series of questions and EVP recordings. To their shock, the voice of a man could be heard on the tapes answering their questions in a low, raspy tone. The voice identified itself as Charles, a man who had supposedly lived in the house years before. But was this really the spirit of a dead man, or something far more sinister? As the haunting continued, Jackie's children also began to experience disturbing phenomena. Her son, then only 5 years old, described seeing shadowy figures standing in the corners of his room at night. He would wake up screaming, saying that there were monsters watching him, Jackie recalled. He was too young to make this up, and I knew from my own experiences that he was telling the truth. In one particularly horrifying incident, Jackie saw one of the shadow figures for herself. She had been lying in bed trying to calm her son after a nightmare when she saw movement out of the corner of her eye. There was this tall, dark figure standing by the door, she said. It wasn't just a shadow. It had form, a shape. It was watching us. I was so terrified I couldn't move. I just held my son and prayed it would go away. The entity seemed to feed on the fear and chaos it created. No matter how many times Jackie tried to cleanse the house or call in priests to bless it, the activity would return, often with even more intensity. The investigators, too, found themselves caught in the web of the poltergeist's power. Jeff Wheatcraft later reported that after leaving the house, he experienced a string of bad luck and bizarre accidents. It was like the thing followed me home, he said. My camera equipment would break, I'd have these strange nightmares, and I just couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, even in my own house. Jackie eventually fled the San Pedro home, unable to take the constant torment. Even after moving, however, the entity seemed to follow her, though the activity was less intense. It was like it wasn't done with me, she said. I'd hear the footsteps in my new house, or I'd wake up feeling like someone was watching me. But it wasn't as bad as it had been in San Pedro. The San Pedro poltergeist left an indelible scar on all who were involved. Jackie Hernandez's life was never the same, and the investigators, hardened professionals used to dealing with paranormal activity, admitted that the case still haunts them to this day. Jeff Wheatcraft, in particular, would later say that the experience changed his entire outlook on the paranormal. I went in thinking I knew what I was dealing with, he said, but nothing prepares you for something like that. It wasn't just a haunting, it was pure evil. To this day, the true nature of the San Pedro poltergeist remains a mystery. Was it the restless spirit of Charles, a man who had died in the house years before? Or was something darker at work, something that had used Charles's story as a guise to terrorize Jackie and her family? Whatever the truth, those who lived through it are certain of one thing. The house in San Pedro was home to something far more sinister than a typical haunting. In later years, paranormal experts would continue to study the case, but no definitive answers have been found. For Jackie Hernandez, the memories of the San Pedro poltergeist are still fresh, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurked just behind the walls of her home. People ask me if I'm scared it will come back, she said. The truth is, I'm always scared. Once you've been through something like that, the fear never really leaves you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Until next time, stay cautious and remain vigilant.